Welcome to the Masterfesto podcast. Get ready to be inspired as you get all the tools and secrets on how to master your mind by the mental master herself. She's a speaker, inspirational coach, and author. Here's your host, Isabel Elias, the Queen of Inspiration.
Thank you, and welcome to my podcast, Mastering Your Mind. You're listening to episode 4 on Mastering Your Emotional Intelligence, EQ. Are you aware that along with your IQ, you have an EQ, emotional intelligence? Your EQ could possibly be much more important than your IQ. Your EQ connects you to others. Your IQ does not make that connection. Your IQ can tell you what you can do based on the level of intelligence. Your EQ will tell you how you can do it. Studies show that people with a high EQ are more apt to succeed in life, including business, than those with a high IQ. Interesting. In previous episode, you learned how unnecessary long-term suffering shuts down our happiness, our ability to create, affects our overall health and the quality of our life. You also learned that happiness is an expression of our inner being. Happiness serves as feedback, an internal system that provides information about what's happening or what's about to happen. In this episode, I will show you what you need to develop and master your EQ and why it is very important to your success in life. Here's what you can expect from the episodes on Mastering Your Mind. The episodes will be once a week on Tuesday for about 30 minutes. Forgive me if I go over or under the 30 minutes. Still a work in progress when it comes to this podcasting business. During these episodes, I'm going to give you all I've got. And if you get one takeaway, one golden nugget from my episode, I will be happy. I recommend that you listen once and then you listen a second time, maybe a third and fourth time, and take notes. I'm going to share some really good stuff with you. And I will share some great quotes from people I admire like Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, Les Brown, and more. And by the way, I will have guests for you at times. So, what is emotional intelligence? It is the ability to understand your emotions and how your emotions influence motivation and behavior. Unlike your IQ, your EQ is flexible and can be developed, and that is good news. This concept of emotional intelligence has been around since the early 20th century, but the term was first introduced by Wayne Payne in 1985. Then the most recent book, Emotional Intelligence by Dave Goleman. I highly recommend this book. Emotional Intelligence by David Goleman. You see, we start developing our EQ very early in life. Parents have the first hand, then schools. Teachers make a big impact on helping young students develop their EQ. There is a great program being used in schools today, social emotional learning. Now, over 30 years ago, when I was an elementary school teacher, before the schools were looking at the importance of emotional growth and stability, I implemented my own program, not knowing that I was looking into the future of these little guys. So sit back and enjoy this little story. I'm a young teacher out of college. It's my second teaching assignment, first and second grade combination. I just left teaching 7th and 8th grade, so I'm in a culture shock. These little people don't know how to read or write, and they fight a lot. Most times they come in the class after recess crying because of a fight in the playground. Okay, I asked myself, How can I make a difference with these little guys so that the violence stops and I can start teaching the 3 R's? I hand out red construction paper, a pencil, and a string. I give each child a big red heart for them to trace, cut out, and write the word love in big letters. I staple the string to the heart and place it over their head so that it lies flat on their chest. Okay, boys and girls, you must wear your heart when you go out to recess. If anyone hurts you, tear a piece of the heart and put it in your pocket. Day 1. They come in with their hearts completely tattered. Jose comes to the front of the class. Who wants to fix Jose's heart? Of course, all students raise their hand. Maria comes up. I give her a piece of tape, and she begins to repair Jose's heart. More students come up until all the pieces are taped. I do this for each student. As each student repairs a heart, they say, I'm sorry your heart was hurt. Oh, each day they get a new heart, and by the end of the week, there are very few torn hearts. And on one occasion, a student comes running into the classroom during recess to get tape so he can repair a heart. Oh, I believe it is our duty to teach young children to be compassionate and sensitive to the feelings of others. It's also important that we become role models of emotional intelligence. Your emotional intelligence is measured by the level of sensitivity and intuitiveness. Einstein relied on his feelings and intuition, his emotions, probably more than his intelligence. He let his feelings guide him. He allowed his intuition and emotions to take over. Now just take a look. How sensitive and intuitive are you? Is this an area that you need to work on? Really take a look. Emotional intelligence is also measured by your self-awareness, empathy, compassion, and confidence. You see, if you have high empathy but lack confidence in your communication, you can damage the other person. Your words will not land right. Here's an example. I'm so sorry for your loss. He's no longer suffering. He's in a better place, and your worries are over. Ugh, that is a very low EQ. So what is your level of self-awareness, empathy, compassion, and confidence? Make a note on what you need to work on. Personally, I'm working on confidence, and it is getting better. This podcasting business is helping me build my confidence, that's for sure. Also, social interactions is an indicator of your level of emotional intelligence. Don't hide out. Socialize. Get out there. Are you a social butterfly or do you avoid social interactions? Check it out. Take a look. There's calmness, honesty, clarity, and self-motivation are measurements. Is this an area you need to work on? This takes focused work. Are you willing to take this on? Remember, it's your life we're talking about. Are you persistent in the face of frustration? And can you control impulses and delay gratification? As a culture, we don't know how to delay gratification. We want what we want now. This is a skill that most of us need to develop. And can you regulate your moods and keep distress from swamping the ability to think? Give up those lazy moods. Are you a moody person? If you are, work on this right away. Do you emphasize hope or do you feel hopeless? What gives you hope? What takes away your hope? And how well do you handle your emotions in relationships? This is the most difficult. Oh, this is a biggie. And I believe this is the most important. Do you wait for your loved one to give up being right? How important is it for you to be right? How well do you manage stress, pressure, and challenges? Stress could diminish your EQ. What stresses you? And how are you managing it? You must be high on all these qualities because if you miss your ability to master your EQ, you will not have that opportunity any other way. You must master all these qualities, or at least start to develop them to the point of mastery. You see, having a healthy EQ leads to a very harmonious life. It's your life we're talking about. Now that you know the qualities of having a healthy EQ, next is to work on development and mastery. Where do we start? We start with self-awareness. We must notice our emotions. Be curious about your emotions and know what is needed to handle the negative emotions that come up. Here's a golden nugget. Emotions are subconscious, but it's important to be consciously aware of your emotions and learn to control them. Learn to challenge your negative emotions, question their validity, and think of more positive alternatives. When your thoughts are negatives, drop them like hot coals. Be resourceful. Find ways to manage your emotions. Put yourself in the zone. Life then becomes easy, manageable, fun, interesting, even blissful. And don't give up. Let's look at the different emotions and the impact these emotions have on our life. Be sure to take note of the emotions you need to work on. The first one is anger. This is a strong emotion. Blood flows to the hands, heart rate increases, and a rush of adrenaline. This makes it easier to grasp a weapon and strike. Anger is the mood worst at controlling because it can be energizing and exhilarating, but it is the most important to control. Sadness, melancholy, gets in the way of our overall well-being. Crying can sometimes break the spell of sadness, but it can also leave the person still obsessing over the reason they're sad. Take a breakup. You must break the chain of sadness. How do you do this? Read a good novel. Watch a funny movie. Video games, puzzles, plan a fantasy vacation. An exciting sporting event. Aerobic exercise and a brisk walk. A walk in nature. Live entertainment, including a comedy act. And sexual pleasures. Worry. Worry affects mental performance. Worrying builds on itself. We worry about worrying. You worry about one thing, and that builds to worrying about the next, and the next, and the next. And then it loops back to the first worry. Worrying is the heart of all anxiety, phobia, compulsions, obsessions, and panic attacks. You can stop worrying by shifting your attention. You've got to shift as soon as it starts, or even better, before it starts. Now, to do this, you must have a good sense of self-awareness. Here's a golden nugget. What's the payoff on your worrying? What do you get from your worrying? You get a goodie from your worrying. What is it? Think about it. You get to have pity, warm fuzzies. What are the goodies you're getting? Now, worrying could be a mental addiction, addicted to worrying. You're going to need to let go of the payoff and develop the habit of not worrying. When a worry goes unchallenged, it will gain power. Don't let this happen. Don't give this kind of advice. This is negative advice. It might sound good, but it is not good. Don't tell people, just stop worrying, or don't worry, be happy. This advice makes people crazy. What are ways to handle the worry situation? Identify the trigger that started the worry. Find positive solutions. Learn to relax. Make relaxation a habit so you can call on it on the spot. Practice mindful meditation. And fear is another strong emotion. All of us experience fear at some level. With fear, blood goes to the large skeletal muscles such as the legs. This makes it easier to flee. At the same time, the body freezes as the mind tries to come up with a reaction of fight or flight. The brain's emotional center is triggering an alert on the threat or perceived threat. You see, it's really important for you to feel safe. Do what you need to do to feel safe. Anxiety, the stress evoked by life. Anxiety lowers our immune system, subjecting us to all kinds of diseases and illnesses and chronic ailments and such. Anxiety also sabotages mental and academic performance. Don't wait for your anxiety to become chronic or habitual. Don't give in to overwhelming levels of anxiety. Learn to relax. Relaxation works for anxiety. Meditation works. Find ways to handle anxiety. Bring hope back to your life. Now, here's a typical scenario of a person that's been worrying all her life. I feel anxious and tense all the time. It all started in high school. I worried constantly about my grades and worried if the kids and teachers liked me. I also got pressured from my parents to be a straight A student. I guess I caved in to all the pressure and I started having stomach problems. 20 years later, I can't drink coffee or eat spicy foods. And when I'm feeling anxious or stressed, my stomach will flare up. Since I'm always anxious or stressed, I'm always nauseous. Does that sound familiar? Yes, it can take a whole life. It can make you miserable. Miserable. Stop all the anxiety and stop the worrying. It's not worth it. Plus, I really like coffee. And I love spicy foods. Depression. Now, depression must be handled correctly. You see, relaxation does not work on depression. And alcohol will only make it worse. Self-hatred, worthlessness, and depression paralyzes life. Be optimistic. You see, life will turn out no matter what the present circumstances. I always say, life turns out at the end. If it hasn't turned out, it's just not the end. Without optimism, you can fall into apathy and hopelessness. Handle depression immediately. You can do this by praying. Praying is really good for depression. And the only form of meditation that seems to work for depression is mindful meditation. And get dressed up, put on some makeup, and socialize. See the loss differently. Let's say that your lover broke up with you. Start thinking of ways the relationship was not that great anyway. Maybe you were not a good match. Helping others in need is a really good way of handling depression. Schedule distracting events. The next step on developing your EQ is to practice mindfulness. Be present and noticing what you're doing. Really notice what's happening around you. Have a clear sense of what's happening around you. Practice seeing things things as if it was the first time. This is a Zen Buddhist tradition. It's called Shoshin, beginner's mind. Learn something new, something that you suck at. And I suck at singing, and I'm learning how to sing. Practice diffusing your triggers. Don't explode and get edgy. Avoid all aggression and hostility. Know your beliefs and where they come from. Get curious. Focus on the needs of others and see the world through their eyes. Stop all negative self-talk. Refrain from what you're telling yourself. Find a deeper, more positive meaning and use conflict resolution to solve your relationship issues. Listen to each other. Slow down. Pause. Thank you for listening. I hope that I was able to give you something to take away, something that will help you develop your EQ, your emotional intelligence. Life is sweet when you have mastered your emotions. I look forward to our next episode on Mastering Your Mind. Visit my website, masterfesto.com, and check out my books.
From author Isabel Elias comes the book Master Festo, The Joy of Mastery, available on Amazon. This must-read book offers you the possibility to get on a journey of mastery, a life journey with no finish line, a journey where joy is the foundation. Many have mastered something in life, but few people experience joy in their mastery. Mastery without joy can be hard and sometimes unfulfilling. Mastery with joy is done with grace and ease. Master Festo, The Joy of Mastery, is a blueprint to create your own mastery and bring joy to that mastery. You will work on mastering areas of your life that are most important: self-awareness, physical health, emotional health, mental well-being, spirituality, and being of service. You will read the stories of ordinary people expressing their extraordinary accomplishments. You will not be able to put this book down, and you will want to read it several times. Order your copy right now on Amazon. Master Festo, The Joy of Mastery, from author Isabel Elias, available in Kindle and paperback.
And if you want to send me a personal message, drop me an email, isabel@masterfesto.com. Please like and comment on your takeaway from this episode, and ask at least 3 of your friends to listen to my podcast and subscribe. This is very important. Thank you. Until next week, I leave you with the words of Maya Angelou. I have learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel.